Welcome to the Pretty Powerful Podcast, where powerful women are interviewed every week to share real inspiring stories and incredible insight to help women or anyone break the barriers, be a part of innovation, shatter the glass ceiling, and dominate to the top of their sport, industry, or life's mission. Join us as we celebrate exceptional women and step into our power. And now, here's your host, Angela Jeanne-Mari.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Pretty Powerful Podcast. My name is Angela Jeanne-Mari, and today I'm here with Dr. Jeanne-Mari Retief. Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks, and you. That was a great pronunciation.
You know, I try so hard because you have such a unique name, and it's a beautiful name, and I don't want to butcher it.
Thank you so much.
So, Dr. Jeanne-Mari Retief founded FIGGI Beauty to provide gentle skincare for sensitive, anxious souls. With a background in law and a passion for wellness, she built FIGGI on sensitivity, transparency, and holistic beauty. And what really inspires me and what really kind of got me interested is you have such an incredible, diverse brand. I mean, you're an international human rights lawyer, mental health advocate, and a beauty entrepreneur. I mean, that's amazing. So I just can't wait to dive into this with you. So I just want to address something really quickly. So, you are going through I'm honored that you're here because you are going through a few things. You just had a hysterectomy, which you shared with me, and your sister just passed away. So I'm so sorry for your loss. So I do want to just acknowledge those two things because, obviously as entrepreneurs, it's really hard. And like we were just saying, putting one foot in front of the other, not only do you have your own, medical issues that you're trying to recover from, but coming back from, having somebody who's really close to you pass away is really devastating. So I just want to acknowledge that I'm happy that you're here, and your mental health is obviously one of the most important things that we can be focused on. And with what you do, I just feel like it would be, it's important that we acknowledge that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
So I want to start by asking so you went from international human rights lawyer, mental health advocate, and beauty entrepreneur. Which one came first, and how did that all come together?
Many times when I'm on speaking on this topic, one of the questions that I get the most is, oh, how did you make that leap? How did you make that decision to change careers and do something different? And that just wasn't the story for me. My PhD is in international human rights and criminal. And I don't think you pursue something like a PhD if you're not 100% sure that this is what you want to do with the rest of your life. Like you're passionate about it. This is where you want to be. I had my own consultancy. I worked in that field for 14, 15 years. So I didn't want to change careers. I loved my career. I loved the fact that I built that consultancy from the ground up when nobody thought it would work.
I love that.
I was diagnosed with panic disorder in 2016, and I really mismanaged it. I had a really hard time accepting my diagnosis and the limitations that came with that. And it caught up to me in 2020, 2021. And I was forced to make really difficult decisions about how my life has to change and what I can and no longer can do. And I was very angry at that decision. So for me, it didn't feel like I was taking this leap forward. It felt like something was dying and being taken away from me. And then out of that, FIGGI was born, which now I can say was a blessing in disguise, but it most certainly did not feel that way to me when it happened.
Yeah, I know. That's usually how it happens, is usually you feel like something is dying inside of you or around you, and you're like, I don't want this to happen. And then all of a sudden you something else comes to life as a result of that time that you now have, that focus and that time that you can devote to something new, and then something beautiful is born from that. And so it is interesting how that works.
Yeah.
And so many times we resist it. Why do you think you were resisting the diagnosis so much?
I come from a very difficult upbringing. I have
Mhm.
a lot of severe generational trauma in my family. I have a history of sexual abuse and assault from people close to me, and a long history of undiagnosed mental illness in my house, which I later, when I grew up, was able to understand, oh, this is where all this bizarre behaviors came from and all those things that hurt so deeply and that I couldn't understand. And when this happened to me, my first thought was, I fought so hard to get out of this and to make something else of my life. And now I'm exactly the same. I'm the same. It's
Mm,
me too. I have the label too. And I didn't want to be that. Now
mm,
I understand that panic disorder is one of many different types of anxiety disorder. And it is actually one of the anxiety disorders that is not necessarily genetic. It's
mm.
caused by complex post-traumatic stress,
Right.
which helped me a lot. But it took a minute
Yeah, yeah.
to get to that realization.
Well, and it's wonderful that you were able to go and do that because that's one of the hardest things to do is to see something in yourself or to be told there is something about yourself that you have to work on and then really kind of commit to that. Like I know with a lot of people when you even when you go through counseling, they'll say this is what the problem is, and there's so much denial there because it
Mhm.
forces you to say, I have to recognize this, and if I don't recognize this, it's going to snowball into something bigger. But it's why so many people avoid things like counseling because they don't want to have to deal with that because it only is going to open up wounds, and those wounds hurt even 20, 30 years later.
100%. And also, I was in a very competitive profession and I had already built this consultancy. I always knew I wanted to go into human rights. People told me it would be impossible to kind of make a career out of it. I struggled to get into the United Nations and all these places I wanted to be. So I just decided to do it myself.
Hmm.
And I had this thing about, oh, what are people going to say if they know? I'm going to be less capable than, right? I'm going to be the one that cannot handle stress,
Oh,
um, that maybe gets overlooked for projects in favor of people that are more resilient. And,
mm,
was all of that fear and shame that came with it as well, which just made me kind of stuff it under a rug and act as if it was not there.
oh, yes, I understand. So when you went from recognizing this in yourself to advocating for others, how did that transition happen?
It was never my goal to advocate for others. When I started Figgy Beauty, it was more a sense of survival for me. I knew
Mm,
that if I was gonna have to say goodbye to this career, I needed something challenging that would help me still find purpose again,
hmm.
um, but in a way that I could take ownership of my diagnosis and find kind of a path that fulfills me in a way that works with my limitations. And one of my external symptoms is really sensitive skin. So that's how the skincare came about. And then it kind of naturally led into this thing. Okay, well, it's not just the skin, it comes from somewhere inside you. There are triggers, there are things that you need to learn about your wiring, about your manual. And then I started realizing the more I spoke about it, like on podcasts and interviews, the more I started finding kindredness with other people that have been through it, but that are still struggling so badly because I've already gone through all the stumbling blocks and did all the things wrong that I was supposed to do a different way. And so I was sitting with this wealth of information and a lack of an external support system so that you're not always leaning on your husband and your loved ones because they get fatigued.
Hmm.
And then I thought, well, this may be worth talking about. This may be worth exploring with others that are wired like I'm wired.
Hmm. And you're right. I mean, there's so much what's going on inside of you can trigger things on the outside of you. And so anything from stress to illness, this is when people will have, eczema flare-ups, or they might have other medical conditions that happen as a result of stress, or as a result of other things that are going on internally or mentally. And so that there's definitely a correlation there. So it's amazing that you've recognized that and then started tackling both issues at the same time.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a journey.
It is a journey.
Yeah.
So you went from law school and learning, getting this incredible degree and leading this incredible career to now taking on a whole new industry. So what was the transition from, knowing one thing, studying law to now advanced cosmetic chemistry? So what was the transition like? And did you find challenges in how that the making new contacts, developing a new business in an entirely new industry?
It was, and it continues to be excessively challenging.
Hmm.
I went from a service-based industry to a product-based industry. Not only did I go to a product-based industry, I entered it during a time when the whole landscape of marketing changed. So everything is social media, it's online, and I came from a career where we were strongly discouraged to be on social media.
Mm.
So I never delved into social media. I didn't have an Instagram account. I didn't even know what TikTok was because
Hmm.
it didn't, feature in my life. I wasn't to, supposed to be on it in any way, so I never really, taught myself how to use it or what to do with it. So there were many, many challenges. And then, of course, I decided that I want to be able to be the one to formulate the products. I want to know exactly what goes in there. I had a specific ingredient from South Africa I needed to work with. I wanted to know at least enough that I could question when I felt something felt wrong. And that presented its own challenge because I never had chemistry at school. I was
Hmm.
really, really bad at it. I just
Yeah.
couldn't grasp it. So I had the whole imposter syndrome. How am I going to do
Mm.
this? Am I going to pass it? I'm not smart enough to do this. I'm not smart enough to study this. And then you prove yourself wrong sometimes. So yeah, there have been many challenges, and it feels honestly to me like every day there's a new challenge that you need to overcome.
Hmm.
Skincare is such a competitive industry also. There's so many different narratives. It's so confusing. But it does keep you engaged and thriving.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I kind of want to touch on a little bit about, you also have small children. And so is that, how old are your kids?
I have one. She's
Oh,
7.
okay. It's 1 7-year-old. So you're also doing this at a time when you have a family and you have, panic disorder and you have all of these. How are you navigating? How are you navigating all of these changes and then balancing being a mother, balancing the pandemic, balancing, a
Yeah.
transition in your career? It's a lot to take on.
By making many mistakes.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Hopefully, and giving yourself grace through those mistakes.
Yeah, sometimes you can be pretty hard on yourself, but you
Yeah.
you kind of find your way. Um, when we decided to try for kids, we made the decision that we didn't want to sacrifice our careers. We wanted to obviously do the best we can for this little life, bring her into the world, love her unconditionally. But it was very important to us that she fits into our lives and our
Hmm.
lives don't completely change around
Hmm.
her,
Hmm.
which worked very well for us because we were very dedicated to a good sleeping routine, which is key to my panic disorder. Like insomnia
Hmm.
is one of my symptoms. Sleeping badly is a huge trigger for me. So we spent a lot of time mapping this out. Okay, so how are we gonna physically make this work? How are we going to travel the way we travel? How are we going to manage my panic disorder with a screaming baby that needs to be fed 4 times a night, that needs love and attention? And we just figured it out basically like a business plan, and it worked for us. She traveled with me every time I used to go for more than 2 nights. She would come with. She grew up understanding what my world looks like and how it operates. And she's very involved in Figgy as well. We're opening a store in April, and she's coming with, and she's doing some of the interviews, and
Oh,
she
that's
can tell you all
amazing.
about the product. So I make her part of my life and part of what goes on. And I try to be as honest with her about the good and the gritty as I can. But I do make a lot of mistakes.
Well, I think we all do. And, it's
Yeah.
just we have to give ourselves grace because we're really bad at giving grace to ourselves. We'll give grace to other people, but we don't give it to ourselves. And so, as moms, we just have to we have our own way of parenting. And as long as that parenting style isn't like harmful to the children, we have to give ourselves grace that we're doing the very best we can. And what you're doing, I think, is amazing. Like I was the same way. I had a small child and was, in my first business, I was married and he was raised in an entrepreneurial household. And then when I got divorced, he was only 6 years old. And so he got to come a lot of times with me to work
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
there were times where I needed to go hand paychecks to our employees at their different job sites. And he would come with me and he would be in charge of handing out the paychecks. And, I just made him part of the process. And he absolutely, thrived in that environment. I constantly felt like, am I involving him too much? Like, am I taking away his
Yeah.
childhood? And so many times I, felt so guilty all the time. And then I would say he's 18 now. He's a senior in high school. And about a year ago, I was really just having that mom guilt of like, did I do everything I could as a mom to raise a good child? And so I asked him, I'm like, you know, I feel like you've spent your life working with me. And I'm like, did I do enough to give you the childhood that you need and deserve? And he's like, Mom, he's like, I've had the best childhood. He's like, honestly, I don't know how you do everything that you do and still, run a company and are a great mom. So, they get it. They get it. They see
Oh,
your
that's
dedication.
good.
They see your dedication, they recognize it, but you're also developing an incredible work ethic. You're developing resilience in them. And so what you're doing, I think, is just it's right on. Involve her and let her know
Thank
that,
you.
being a strong woman and, doing all of these things is good. And you're out there just, crushing it. And not everything is perfect, and they shouldn't be, because you don't want your kids to think that you're perfect, and that then they have this aspiration that they have to be perfect, and that's not fair
Hmm.
to them. So vulnerability is good. It's okay for your kids to see you in a vulnerable place because it teaches them that they're allowed to be vulnerable also, and that it's going to be okay in the end.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
yeah, yeah. So it's all good. You're doing great. So let's go into so you've made a lot of changes, obviously, but you've also been dealing with a lot of there's a lot of mental health challenges that we're dealing with and starting a business and moving, and but you also came from a childhood that was traumatic. You had some
Yeah.
traumatic experiences as a child. How do you think that played into you becoming who you are today?
I think that's probably the only reason I am who I am today,
Really?
because um ever since I can remember, my driving force has been one day I'm gonna grow up and I'm gonna get out of here.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I used to play this out in, these little shows I used to put on for myself in the garden. And, you dream about yourself being the princess in this knight in shining armor coming to rescue you. And then you grow up and you're starting to play out what you want to be. And when you grow up. And so that was my driving force from as long as I can remember. And when I eventually did it, I think I didn't give myself, but I also don't think I had the emotional intelligence at that time to do it. I didn't give myself the space and the leeway to just take a second, sit in it, rest, and say, okay, I'm safe. I
Yeah.
made it. I got out. I just went into these years and years and years and years of survival instinct, just going, 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 helping somebody else, dealing with it in like a roundabout third party way, which then obviously led to my breaking. But I think it shaped everything about who I am, my perseverance, my resilience, my humor at times when it's really difficult to, have that sense of humor, but also my anxiety and my sensitivity and how nervous I get sometimes and my doubt in myself. That also all stems from that. So I think it really is the ground that you're planted in and, the the seeds that feed your roots.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I can appreciate that. We all go through so much, and I feel like that resilience is something that it comes from bad, but if you use it the right way, it creates grit. It creates this good, um, I guess, motivation to want to do better and create a better life for you, and then also your children and your family. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I was reading something this morning, and they were saying the one thing that separates entrepreneurs or anybody really, the people who are driving the world forward in a positive way, the one thing that separates them is grit. It's
Mm,
grit that is
mm.
is that one driving force, and it's so true. It's that I'm going to get through this, and it's going to be okay, and it might be painful, and I know I'm going to struggle at times, but just, like I said before, give yourself grace and you'll
Yeah.
work through it. So, what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
Oh, nothing.
Nothing?
Absolutely nothing. Know why? It's just I wouldn't have been in a position to take it in, to understand it, and to make the most of it. And I also don't think I would have been in the position where I would look back one day and remember this advice that somebody gave me. I needed to learn it on my own pace and struggle through it as hard as it was. But there were also very many good times. So I would kind of just leave it as it is.
Yeah,
And just be okay with how it sorted itself through.
yeah, yeah, that's great. So I want to kind of touch on the skincare products because you mentioned that you use an ingredient from South Africa. So tell me a little bit about the chemistry of the skincare products that you use and why you use it and how, I guess, it benefits our skin.
So the why is really connected to the anxiety disorder.
Hmm.
So when you have an anxiety disorder, you're always in that kind of fight or flight instinct, right? When
Yeah.
that happens, your brain kind of knocks out this alarm glass, dumps the cortisol and adrenaline in your bloodstream, and this shoots to your nerve endings because it's getting you ready to move, to protect, to hide, or whatever it is. And a lot of our most sensitive nerve endings is just below the first layer of skin. And that's why
Hmm.
you get that scratching sensation, itching sensation, the redness. Um, Eczema often gets worse. Rosacea flares up. Psoriasis flares up when you're under a lot of stress. And it's because of this inflammation and irritation being caused by these little nerve endings. So, one of the external symptoms of my panic disorder was very dry and sensitive skin. And I wanted to make something to speak to that external symptom, calm me, soothe me. And I know rooibos very well. I don't know if you've had the tea,
Yes, I
rooibos
have.
tea.
Hmm.
Yes.
Hmm.
So it's made with rooibos tea because it has so many decades of scientific evidence behind its soothing properties, its anti-inflammatory properties. It's a very unique antioxidant. Um, that's why we use it in South Africa in so many baby nappy rash creams because it's
Okay.
so good at healing that inflammation and that irritation. And the entire line is based on calming, soothing, and bringing your skin back to a good space. It's not about fast and fierce results. It's not about the latest it ingredient and these harsh anti-aging. It's about getting your skin back to a really good base, a place where you feel happy, you feel comfortable, you feel soothed, while still gently looking after the everyday concerns that you may have.
Okay. So how did you start coming up with how did you start coming up with how it's made? Like I
Yeah.
know you knew that you're going to use that one ingredient, but then how do you then create a product?
So it took me 3 years to
Wow.
get the products right because of the testing and sending back and then redoing it and all of that. A lot of research. I decided that I just didn't subscribe to the whole clean beauty thing because I just understood that it was more important to have conscious ingredients, and I wanted to have or avoid the ingredients that have been scientifically proven to irritate sensitive skin.
Mm.
So I launched into this 2 year research period where I researched every ingredient I wanted to use, how you should formulate with it, what should the percentage of it be for sensitive skin. If you want to use golden standard things like vitamin C is the golden standard in antioxidants, but you can't because it upsets sensitive skin. What else can I use? And obviously, Robos is a great alternative.
Mhm.
But yeah, it took 3 years to put these formulations together and to hand pick every single ingredient and to make sure that it can be the best it can be for sensitive skin.
So once you have your great products, then you have to create packaging. So
Yes.
talk to me about the packaging process and what that looks like and kind of what are some of the pitfalls to avoid if somebody is creating packaging for their product.
Packaging, I think, but this is with everything. I always feel like consumers, and us as a consumer, when you're choosing your packaging, shouldn't have too many options because it just becomes so confusing.
Mhm.
And that is definitely the pitfall with packaging. There's so much to choose from. And then you have your minimum order quantities that you need to think of, and you'll look at a little um, lid, for example, and think this is the perfect fit to the bottle, and oh, it's only so much, or such a percentage of the product, and then you multiply it with whatever your MOQ
Yeah.
is, and it really jacks up your price. So that was a challenge, and then also, of course, the challenge of accepting that you cannot be everything to everyone.
Mm.
We obviously want to do our best for our environment. You obviously want to do what you can to have a green footprint. But the reality of the situation is that if you're an indie brand and you are buying things at a very low quantity versus these mega brands, you have to be conscious of your costing and how that affects the price of the final product and what you can realistically do with your packaging in this phase and stage versus what you may hopefully be able to do 5 years from now when you're open to more options and decisions. Those were the two biggest challenges for me.
Yeah, I imagine that's got to be tough because you've got to balance having a product that looks beautiful with,
Mhm.
getting it in people's hands. And if it's too
Yeah.
expensive, you may not get the quantity out that you want. So interesting. So how do you distribute? How do you get it into people's hands?
So we are online. We've
Uh-huh.
just launched with Amp Beauty. So we're in all their stores.
Nice.
We should be in Target by the end of March,
Wow.
and we're in a couple of boutique stores, and we're opening our first store in Scotland in April.
Wow. Congratulations. That's
Thank
very
you.
exciting. Very exciting.
Thank you.
And this brand launched when?
It launched in 2023 for
Wow,
Scotland.
that's a
Yeah.
lot of growth. Well, good for you.
Yeah.
That's
Thank
amazing.
you. Thank you
Must be
so much.
very exciting to be seeing something just kind of help so many other people. It's coming. It's not only your baby as an entrepreneur. We always want to see, our companies thrive, but your
Yeah.
company is doing well and also doing good by helping other people. So,
Yeah, I hope so. That is really my goal, honestly and truly. So I really hope so.
That's fantastic. Um, so as women, we give our power away a lot, whether
Mm.
it's giving somebody else credit or, taking criticism when that criticism isn't warranted. And so can you tell me about a time that you gave your power away and then another time that you stepped into your power?
Oh my gosh. Do you have time for my life
I
story? Oh, I still give my power away every day.
Yeah,
I'm honestly I'm so bad at it. I think it comes as part of my wiring. It's something I really constantly have to concentrate on. I
really.
constantly have to remind myself about the fact like, no, you have a right to say no. You have a right to say you don't understand and to ask again. You're paying for this. You have a right to
Yeah.
say it should end.
Right.
And I still do it every single day. I still do it. I mean, I honestly cannot tell you one single instance. It's something that I work hard at every day.
Yeah.
One thing I can say that I did to step into my power is the day I stopped devouring self-help like it was going to save my life.
Yeah.
Because I'm just because I'm how I'm wired, I'm also a big perfectionist. So when I was diagnosed, I thought, oh, I can read every single book on this and I can solve
Mm.
it and I can meditate the right way. And all these people are telling me they had what I have and now they did this and they're cured. They never had a panic attack again. And and you believe it because you so desperately want to believe it because you want to be normal again and you don't want to have this diagnosis. And it set me back so much because every time I had a panic attack, which I will have again, that's why I've been diagnosed with this.
Right.
Um, I would have the panic hangover, which is normal, but it would be so much more intense because I'd have such guilt about the fact that I did it wrong. I didn't
Mm.
follow the steps. I didn't meditate enough. I didn't catch the triggers soon enough. And when I realized that I can just see it as a bad day, I went from having bad days every day to two a week to one a month to one every 3 months. This was a bad day, and that's okay. Tomorrow I can get up and try again. It was just a bad day.
Good for you. That's really powerful because I think that's one of the things that we have, especially with social media now, is this need to everybody has a cure for everything,
Yeah.
whether it's, something like acne or it's a disorder, like they want to cure everything and they make it sound like everything can just be done immediately. And they've created this false expectation that if you just do their plan, but yet there's 100 of those plans and 1,000 and it just can
Mhm.
go on and on and on that you'll be fine. And really truly what we have to figure out is what works for us and know that we're all different and that it's okay if somebody else's $1 million idea that they made $1 million in 2 weeks doing this one thing, that's not going to work for me, and that's okay. So
That is exactly right. Yeah.
mhm. Yeah, so you were when you were saying earlier that previously you didn't have social media, I was a little envious. I'm like, gosh, it does sound like a nice because when you get into this world of doing podcasts or running a business or having a service or something where you are out there and you need the public to kind of take
Yeah.
notice, that is a challenge. Like I'm still really bad at posting on social media. I'm still
Hmm.
really bad at engaging because to me it's exhausting,
Hmm.
mentally. It's just exhausting, and it's exhausting to see all of the pick me kind of stuff that you see on social media, and you're constantly feeling like, am I doing enough? Am I good enough? Am I in the imposter syndrome? Definitely is something that can creep in.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I have a hard time with it too. Honestly, it's not my strong suit. It's not where I shine. I
yeah.
have wonderful people that help me with it because they're so much better than I am.
Hmm.
But I'm all about human connection, one-on-one, spending time, and that's okay.
Yeah. So that was going to be my next question is what have you, as a mom, as somebody who, you're trying to build this brand, have you delegated certain things? Have you been able to kind of let go of certain processes in your business?
I mean, I have, but it's been a struggle because when you start something from the ground up, and when I started Figgy, it was very cash intensive to start it because product cost money, research and development costs money, shipping costs money, packaging costs money. And I didn't borrow and I didn't have any investors. I still don't. I funded it all myself. And you just literally don't have the budget to be appointing all of these people to do all these things for you. So it's not about not wanting to delegate, is it's like you don't have the budget to delegate. Everything does unfortunately stop with you. As you grow and as things change, you are able to hire somebody here or get some help there. And that has changed for me for sure.
Mhm.
And I think it comes back to also how deeply I've learned to manage my limitations and to work with my disorder. So I know that I can't do everything and it's better for me to delegate. So I don't have those qualms about pushing things over because I know if I don't, it's going to be so much worse for me in a week or two. So as we grew and as we were more in a budgetary space to be able to do that, yes, I 100% for sure started delegating a lot more.
Good. That's good. Um, so we always ask, kind of as you're going through some obstacles and challenges, what were the biggest obstacles that you had to overcome and with starting Figgy?
I think the biggest obstacle for me was how visible all of a sudden my story became
Mm,
because of my background, because of the story, because of the abuse. I mean, your listeners and you may know that a big part of the abuse story is usually the secret of it,
yeah.
hiding it, not telling, not saying.
Hmm.
And that was a real challenge to me because every time I used to speak about it, I used to get panic attacks because I would feel like I spoke about it and I let the secret out. And it was actually so surprising to me how severely I reacted to that.
Really?
But it became cathartic to me because it became slowly like it's not this monster hiding in the cupboard anymore, this big thing I need to be ashamed of, hiding somewhere in the dark. It happened. It's normal. There are many other people that are going through it, that have gone through it. We can all be there for each other. But that was very hard for me. Very
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah, I imagine. And now, you just had a hysterectomy. Your sister passed away last week.
Yes.
How are you managing grief and your own uh, physical um, physical well-being? How are you managing that now?
I must say, from the hysterectomy perspective, it's been hard for me because I knew it would be a big operation, but I
Mm,
don't think I anticipated the recovery to be as bad. And now, obviously, as we all do as women, you go back into the thing,
yeah.
you're reading the discussion forums and like, oh, this person is so much better than me at 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and this one is back at work at 3 weeks, and
Yeah.
you feel so horrible. Like, why am I so sore? Why am I so stiff? And so that's been a minute, but I've managed to give myself the grace to kind of heal through that and take my time. It's been frustrating. In terms of grief, I honestly can't tell you. I have an inclination that I may come back to this podcast in a month or two and listen back to myself. She only passed Thursday last week, so
Oh, no.
I feel like, I don't know how I feel. I would definitely rather be lying in my bed with my head under the covers, but I knew that I need to put one foot in front of the other, one day at a time, and
Mm.
then see where that leads me. But it's also okay to not be okay and to not exactly know how I feel at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure you're still dealing with the shock of it all and just yeah, I mean, there's a lot of emotions I'm sure that are going to come out eventually when it processes because everybody processes in their own time. And
Yeah.
you know, I'm we had with grief, I've had a couple of people who have passed away in my life and immediately I was like, wow. okay. And then a couple days would go by or a week would go by and then it would hit me. But it's like it's almost like there's a disconnect that happened, with me and this
Yeah.
and when they
That's
passed
exactly
away.
how I've been feeling, so
Yeah.
disconnected. I was
Hmm.
actually used exactly that word with my husband this morning. It's
Yeah.
so weird. I feel so disconnected from everything.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and when we had an employee that passed away and we discovered it in the office. And I'm in my office and I hear this news and I'm like, okay, wow. And then I don't process it. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
process. And so I go on about my day and then, like a few months later, one of my employees were doing a review and she's like, I really questioned if I wanted to continue working for you because when we heard the news, you just kind of kept going through it. And I'm like, I was also in my mind like I've got to run a business.
Yeah.
I'm going to shelve this and process it later. And unfortunately, like we all process grief differently. I can't break down right there because for me it's like it has to hit me. I have to process it. And sometimes in my brain, it's not going to process right then. It's going to process at a different time. And I'm like, don't feel like I didn't have grief in that moment. I didn't allow myself that space. And that's okay because we all have what works for us. And in that moment, just because I didn't process grief the same way you process grief doesn't mean that one was right, one was wrong.
That makes so much sense actually, because now we're in the whole run up towards all the planning for the funeral. So everything feels so structured. And
Hmm.
I think with siblings passing away, you kind of, the other surviving sibling becomes secondary almost, right? Because everything
Yeah.
is about the parents and oh my God, they just lost a child and nobody's child should die before them. And, it's just there's so much going on. And you have, oh, I need to look after my mom. I need to look after my dad. So you have all of these things that you're processing. So I expect that after the funeral,
Yeah.
this whole thing may look a little different.
Right. Because there's a role that you have to step into,
Yeah.
especially if the person was close to you or there's a role that you have to play that you can't quit that role, like and sometimes like with you being the sister having to take on a lot of these arrangements and having to make sure that your parents are okay and making sure everybody else is okay. And with me and it's my employee, I have to continue to make sure all the other employees are, they're notified, but I have to keep putting one foot in front of the other. I can't shut the business down and say, okay, well, we're all not going to work for the next few weeks because, we have to process. Like I have to let people will process at their own pace. And, all you can do is make sure mentally you are healthy and that at the end of the day, you're giving yourself enough space and enough grace to get through what you need to get through.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That helps me.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much I mean, this has just been a really interesting, enjoyable, fascinating conversation. I've loved it so much. And you're just such a survivor. And I have just such respect for you and
Thank
what you're doing. So I love that you're out there helping people. I love that you're out there changing lives. And I just wish you so much success in your future.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, Jean, it's been a pleasure. I have one more question for you. What do you wish more people knew?
Oh my gosh. What do I wish more people knew? Probably just, it sounds so cliche, but just how important kindness is.
Mhm.
Every big thing that's happened in my life, every major step forward in my career, every big celebration in my life, I can directly link back to somebody that shown me a kindness, that gave me an opportunity or a space where nobody else would. It's so, so, so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Amen to that. Well, thank you so much again. You've been such a pleasure to talk to, and
Thank you.
I hope you have so much great success. And
Thank you.
I love that your daughter's watching you and engaging with you throughout this whole process. So I think that's going to be so powerful. So, and just so you know, my 18-year-old now has his own business too. So,
Oh, awesome. Okay, so it worked out really well.
it did. He's had his own business for 2 years and he does pretty well with it. So,
Wonderful.
entrepreneur in the making.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much, everyone, and we will see you on another episode of the Pretty Powerful Podcast. And Jean, I just hope you have the best future. But how can people find you and find Figgy?
The best way is just to go to figgybeauty.com and you'll find everything you need there. You find our products, where we sell them. Figgy Soul is on there if you want to have help with your anxiety. It will link you to our England store as well. So everything you need, you can find on figgybeauty.com.
Perfect. And you will also be able to see all the links on prettypowerfulpodcast.com. So we look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining our guests on the Pretty Powerful Podcast. And we hope you've gained new insight and learned from exceptional women. Remember to subscribe or check out this and all episodes on prettypowerfulpodcast.com. Visit us next time. And until then, step into your own power.